Hey, it's Luann Ward joining you tonight. Thanks to Cupid for bringing me on. I have a brand new date tip for you. It's a second part in the three-part series that we were talking about how to get offline and on a date. This is the most important factor of dating, is to actually meet face-to-face, so you don't have a virtual connection, you actually have a real connection. So we talked about that last week, and this week the subject is setting up the perfect date. Of course, that's going to vary from person to person, so there really is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all perfect date. But what are the 5 most important factors to consider when setting up a date? You know how sometimes you just go out on a date and it's just a success from the beginning to the end. And you could do that exact same date for somebody else and it just not have the same effect. So, hey, thanks for joining me, everyone. I see all the love coming through, which is awesome. Okay, so what are the 5 things to consider? Number 1, think about the day you set the date up on. Okay, the day is really super important. If you're meeting somebody for the first time, prime time dates are pressure. They really are. So asking someone out on a Friday night or a Saturday night, there's a pressure for you and there's a pressure for them. To ask someone to give up their Friday night or Saturday night for someone that they don't know, A, puts a pressure on. B, a lot of people already have plans in advance. So if you're asking someone out and you get rejected, you might take that a little bit personally. So it is always best to set a day where you're not overstepping you're not rushing the process, and making a Saturday night or a Friday night is important times of the week. So do a time where people are likely to be more available, either during the day on the weekend or any night during the week. That's number 1. Number 2, make sure you have time to date when you're on the date. The time is super important. And I can't stress this enough, because there is evidence to suggest that we need 2.5 hours to actually spend talking to someone to enable a connection. So if you're in a rush and your head's all busy, you've come from work and you're all in a tears and you're not in the right frame, you're not going to come across and be your best self. So the time is twofold. Time where you have actually got time to defrag and go from work mode to date mode, or from being the busy mum mode to date mode, or whatever the modes you've got to change. Make sure there's transition time in between there, and that is really important. Also make sure that you've got time for the date. 2.5 hours absolute minimum. Of course you can leave before 2.5 hours, but if you really actually are serious about meeting somebody and making a connection, doing a 20-minute date is never going to get you across past the first date. So I would always suggest also that when you are planning a date, don't have anything that you've got to rush to straight after. Because if you've got to rush off and you're really enjoying yourself and the other person's really enjoying themselves, you're like, oh, gee, I've got to go and have dinner with my granny. Not that saying granny's not important, but having that obligation and cutting a date short, you lose momentum. So let's expect the best, not the worst, and don't make plans too close behind the back of a date. Okay, number 3. Choose wisely where you're going to have this date. Now, I think a lot of people just assume that let's date, okay, let's go to a coffee shop, or let's go to go for a drink or whatever. There's many things that you can do on a date. Have a look at what the person is really like. You've got their profile, you know a little bit about them, you've been communicating with them. What does their communication say? If they're a beach goer and they live by the coast, suggest a walk along the beach and then perhaps something a sandwich afterwards, or a cafe. I don't have anything against going to a cafe, but just not purely going for coffee. Think about what you have discussed on your date. Arrange a picnic. Say to the person, how about I bring the the food, you bring the wine, and we just sit under a tree and chat. Making dates that are specific for each person really shows that you're invested in the process. And for example, if you're setting up a date with someone that's a vegetarian and you go to the Lone Star Steakhouse, this is going to be an absolute fail. So your dating venue and how much thought you put into it will be how much reward you get out of it. Number 4, make sure that wherever you go, that it's just not too crowded for the first date. After that, no problems. And when I say, okay, so for the first date, if you're going to an amusement park or a fair or something, that's fantastic. I think it's a wonderful place to even have a first date, because anything fun that you're doing and anything adrenaline is releasing endorphins and dopamine, and we'll love that. You share that experience. But make sure that you've got somewhere before or after where you can sit down and actually talk, because you need to be able to connect in that sort of communicative way. And if the venue's too crowded, that's not going to happen. If you are going to go for drinks, a cocktail, tapas, or whatever, please make sure that you are not sitting opposite each other. This is an absolute no-no for a first date. If you're only seeing half of a person, you can only connect with half of them. Your date needs to see all of you, particularly you ladies, because men, a lot of men, if they're legs and backside guys, and I know I've talked about body language before, but your body language is essential on a date. And if you can't see all of the body, you cannot connect. So please do not make that one basic mistake of sitting opposite each other. Side by side, round table, corner by corner, it's not that difficult. So, but it really will make a big difference. You've got to be able to reach out and touch the person that you're sitting with. You've got to be able to see all of them and take them all in, okay? So think about that in your venue. And as I said, so a walk, you can see all of everyone sitting on a picnic blanket. You're going to do the same. It is fundamentally one of the biggest mistakes people make, because we're becoming such lazy daters. Number 5, make sure it's a reasonable distance for both parties to travel. Okay, you don't want to be, if you live further apart, and I do believe that geographical convenience, I mean, difference if you live on the other side of the country, but if you live 45 minutes or an hour away, it's not the end of the world, but make sure it's kind of fair for both parties to get to. And guys, this is a time where it does pay to be a little bit chivalrous, and you know that won't go unnoticed, and if it does go unnoticed, it does tell you a lot about the person that you're dating. So they're the 5 top tips of how, you know, setting up a date that's likely to yield a second date. So next week we're going to chat about the things on the date and how to get the actual second date. So you've got offline, you've got the date, you've now got the, you know, how to make the right venue choices, and those 5 things that sometimes we forget. If you put them all together, your dates are going to start going much better. I promise you that. So what are those 5 things? They are, think about the day. Primetime dates on a first date, try to avoid. Make sure you've got time to date. Don't be flustered on arrival, you know, work mode or stressed out about something. Have time to relax on the date, and 2.5 hours to connect with someone. Number 3, choose your date wisely based on that individual person, okay? Because each date can be a little bit different based on what you guys are discussing in the communications. Number 4, make sure your venue's not too crowded and that you have no barriers in between you that are creating a barrier. And think about the distance. That is a fair exchange for both people. Okay, so that's it. And look forward to seeing you all next week. You can get more great tips by following me on Facebook, Luann Ward Matchmaking, or The Dating Report. And also, if you want to download my latest ebook, jump onto my website. The details are below. So that's luannwardmatchmaking.com.au. I hope you have a good week, and please put these tips into use and let me know if they're working for you, because I'm telling you they will. Okay, I'll see you all next week, everyone.